Near the beginning of salvation history, the Israelite people were in deep trouble. They were enslaved in the land of Egypt, where they were chained, beaten, and made to do very hard, arduous labor. And they cried out to their God for help, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And God heard their plea and gave them a way out. He said, "Take a lamb that is 12 years old and slaughter it, and put the blood on their doorposts, that the angel of death may pass over their house." And as death ravaged the land of Egypt, the Israelite people were brought from slavery into freedom. And while this was a great time for joy for them, there was something that was still wrong, because there was a deeper slavery to which they were enslaved to. Not a slavery of a nation or a country or a people, but a slavery to sin and death. And this is the place where we find ourselves so often today, enslaved to sin and death. David writes in the Psalm, "My sin is always before me," and how he desires to be washed clean of his sin, like being white as snow. But the good news is that God still hears our plea. During these moments when we are chained from slavery to sin and death, the Lord Jesus has heard our plea, and he came to us and he saved us by pouring out his life for us, because he is our new Paschal Lamb. He is the Lamb who poured out his blood for us, for our salvation, for our freedom from the chains of the slavery of sin and death. So now we here today have a choice. We have a choice to accept what Jesus has done for us, accept the blood that the Lamb has given us, accept the Eucharist as the gift that Jesus has given us to free us from the slavery of sin and death, or we have the choice to reject it. But if we choose to accept it, if we choose to take the Eucharist for ourselves, if we consume the Eucharist, we will find ourselves freed from the slavery of sin and death evermore, every time that we receive the Eucharist and open ourselves up to the grace of the Eucharist. So let's spend some time this week to consider all the things that chain us, all the things that bind us, our slavery to sin, our slavery to death. And let's bring those things to the Eucharist. Let's bring those things to Mass and ask Jesus to ever more deeply, in receiving his Eucharist, his body, his blood, his soul, and his divinity, to free us evermore from that slavery.